Hey everybody. I thought it would be a good time for me to finally give my review on the Rep PR5000 V2 power rack that I've had for about 9 months. I've been using it just about every day, and so I thought it was time for me to give my impressions. I wanted this to be pretty much the definitive review on this rack from an end user standpoint. And it's going to sound like I am gushing a bit and I'm a bit of a fanboy, but believe me, that was not the case. It's just that this rack has won me over to the point where I really think it's the best power rack on the market. And I wanted to make this review perfect, a perfect reflection of why I think that is. And in the interest of full disclosure, this is actually the third time I'm shooting this video, just because I want to make sure that I get everything right. So just to start off with, to give you a little background, I started with a Rogue rack, and I love Rogue. It's a phenomenal company. I have spent thousands of dollars on Rogue equipment, which I still have. But the rack that I had it had 5/8 inch hardware. It was a little on the smaller side. And so I was looking to get a full-size rack, something that I would be able to buy and use basically for the rest of my life. Not something that I would want to upgrade or change out. I mean, I can expand it, of course, but the base configuration would be something that would live with me forever. And it's kind of funny. Rep was not my first choice. In fact, they weren't even my second choice. My first choice was a Sorinex, a customized Sorinex rack. But as fate would have it, they, for whatever reason, decided they were not interested in my dollars, and they didn't want to get back to me. That rack would have basically been double the cost of this Rep rack. So I kind of dodged a bullet on that. And my second choice was another Rogue rack, just a larger one with full 1 inch hardware and 2 inch spacing and all that good stuff. But the problem there was I was going to have to, the rack that I wanted to get, they didn't have in uprights that were below 90 inches. I've got a 90-inch ceiling, and so I would have had to cut it myself, which really is not that big of a deal. But I just decided to take a look. Before I pulled the trigger on that, I decided to take a look to see what else was out there. And I stumbled upon a Rep. I did a ton of research. I had never bought anything from them before. I did a ton of research, and I ended up deciding to pull the trigger. So just to get into the specs of the rack and what are some of the available options. As far as upright sizing, there is the 80-inch, which is perfect for me, or 93-inch uprights. In terms of the rack depth, it depends whether you want it to go with a 4 or 6 post configuration. They have 16-inch depth options, 30 inches, and 41 inches. For me, my goal was to get the 41 inches because I am a big believer in doing a ton of work inside the cage, and I wanted as much room as possible. I've worked in 24 inch, I've worked in 30. That's fine, but not for me. For me, I wanted 41. And so that was the way to go there. In terms of the color options, there is, on their site, they have two versions of black. They have a matte black, which is it's powder coated and it's got a texture to it, which is the one I opted for. And then they have a metallic black option, which this is a Rogue J Cup, but the metallic black option is very similar to this. It's kind of a shiny, glossy finish, which really had very little texture to it. I wanted the texture. And then as far as actual color options, they have a ton of different colors. The texturing is kind of in between. It's not as textured as the matte, but it's not as glossy as the metallic. So it's powder coat, and in fact, Rep says that if you wanted to If you were ever looking to get their Aries or Athena attachments with the sliding pulley system, they said that the metallic or the actual colored options have a little bit smoother feel to it when you're doing the pulley adjustment compared to the matte black. The matte black will work perfectly fine, but they just said that the other colorways are, because of the slightly lower texturing to it, are a little bit smoother, have a little bit smoother actuation, which really doesn't matter to me because I wanted the matte black either way. One other thing about the 41-inch depth option is that Rep has an attachment here. It's called the rear base stabilizer, which is right here. And this was always going to be an option for me because I've got wall storage behind this rack, and so I needed to pull it off the wall a little bit anyway. But as an added bonus, Rep says that if you combine the 41-inch depth with that rear base stabilizer, there is no need to bolt the rack down. Now, I can tell you, based on my testing before I installed the RBS, this rack is a tank. It's not going anywhere. I don't find any need to, particularly if you're working inside the cage. If you're working on the outside, your mileage may vary. But for me, working inside the cage, this thing is not going anywhere. But that RBS is just an extra peace of mind because I didn't really have any interest in bolting it down to begin with, because I want the flexibility. If I want to expand in the future, if I want to be able to move it around the room, which would be very difficult, but still, it would be a hell of a lot more difficult if I had it bolted down. So the RBS was a good option for me there. So I bought this Rep rack, not knowing anything about these guys in terms of what their shipping was like. The shipping that I had been used to was Rogue's. Again, I love Rogue, but their shipping, if you've bought anything from them, you know that I swear, I think I have this image in my head of their warehouse. In their warehouse, they just basically throw everything in a box, have a priest on staff bless the box, and send it on its way and hope for the best, because just about everything that I've bought from them has had some degree of shipping damage. It's really unbelievable. Now, they're a phenomenal company. They take care of you like you wouldn't believe. So there's not a problem there. It's just the hassle of going through it. And so that's kind of what I was expecting from Rep. But I was pleasantly blown away by the delivery experience. Everything came, I want to say, I mean, no exaggeration, these things came in like, this rack came in like 20 different boxes. And each individual piece was, I mean, basically hermetically sealed in bubble wrap. It was double and triple boxed, and there is not a single component that was shipped to me that had any damage whatsoever. It was shocking. And then I wish I had kept one of them, but within each box for each piece, they have a quality control team go over the pieces, and they have this checklist, and it's signed by somebody, and they go over the whether the powder coating was applied properly, if there are any issues with it was like 12 or 13 different things that they go over, and they check to make sure before it ships that it meets their standards. So that was very impressive. The rack has, and this is one of the things that I was really impressed with when I was considering this brand. The rack, the uprights, pretty much every cross member have laser cutouts for the numbers, as well as the laser logo. And I can tell you, this laser cutout is phenomenal. There are no rough edges, there are no burrs on it at all. There are no shavings inside here. It's actually perfect. And as I said, the front and the back of the uprights are all laser cut. All of the cross members are laser cut with numbers, as well as even the flip down safeties have laser cut numbering. Really impressive stuff. This, in case you did not know, was Sorinex wanted to charge, man, I want to say it was like an extra $500 for laser numbering. It's standard on the rep, and not only is it standard, but it is exceptional quality. The other thing I was really impressed with was the quality of the welds. I know a thing or two about welding. I don't know much, but I know enough to be dangerous, and I know that these welds are spectacular. It looks, it's perfection. Again, it's robotic welding. It's not done by a human. But these welds are, I've never seen welding quality like this before. The only exception, and it's kind of hilarious, is with the multi-grip attachment, which I'll roll in some B-roll footage there. But basically, the welds look like it was done by a monkey. It's really bizarre for the overall quality of the rack to have the one attachment have issues like that. Speaking of the multi-grip, though, aside from the welding issue, which, by the way, just to be clear, it's not a technical issue. There's nothing structurally wrong with it. It's just it's purely an aesthetic issue. And you would probably look at the welds and think, yeah, they're okay, I guess. But compared to the rest of the rack, that's where it really becomes noticeable. But besides the welds, just talking about the multi-grip and just the front attachments in general, when you buy the rack, you do have to choose a pull-up attachment. Strangely enough, they don't offer the option of just a straight cross member. You have to choose a pull-up attachment for the front, and they have about 6 or 7 different options, from the standard, just like a 1 1/4 inch bar, to some globe attachment. You can check it out on the site, but for me, the choice pretty clearly from the beginning was going to be this multi-grip, and I chose it for a couple of different reasons. One, because I like the look of it, and two, from a functionality standpoint, I love the capabilities. It has, so the front bar, as well as all of the angled bars, are 1 1/4 inch in diameter, and the rear bar is 2 inches. So you are given quite a number of different hand placement options, as well as overall diameter options to choose from with this. And you can invert it. You can do all sorts of things. I thought this was hands down the most versatile bar option that they offered, and so I went with that, and I was not disappointed. I use it all the time, primarily for, in addition to pull-ups, I use it primarily as an anchor point for my resistance band work. That's why you might be able to see some powder residue on there. That's what that's for. And then the only other structural option that you have is for the rear logo plate. What you see here is the standard rear plate. They do also offer a lower profile logo plate option, which is essentially just a standard cross member with just the rep logo just kind of in a plate right within the cross member itself. It doesn't hang down at all. I personally went for this one, the larger, the full logo plate. I think it looks great, and there is no loss in functionality. You have the full ability to use the side spacing is available, the spacing behind is available, the spacing underneath the plate itself, the nameplate, is available. Obviously, then the spacing on the top is available. I just think it looks really cool, so I decided to go with that as the option. Now, one thing that I'll talk about this at the end, but as kind of one of my only negatives, but there are no color options for the the nameplate. It's brushed stainless. That's it. You can have any color you want as long as it's brushed stainless. That's it. So you can get, you know, a blue rack, a red rack, a green rack, you know, whatever. But the nameplate is going to be brushed stainless steel. Now, I don't know, if you look closely, you can see that there are ways to fix that. There are hex bolts here, 4, 8, 10 hex bolts that are pretty easy to remove. I've actually tried it. No problem at all to remove them. So if you wanted to remove the nameplate and paint it, I've seen that. I've seen people do that online. But for me, I'm okay. I've embraced the stainless, the black and stainless aesthetic. So I'm okay with it. And then as far as optional attachments that I opted for, I did go with the sandwich J cups by Rep, which I'm not going to talk too much about that now because I'm going to have a separate video discussing the J cups and comparing them with some Rogue sandwich J cups that I have, which are right there. But just a quick preview. They're excellent. They're low profile. They're lightweight, and yeah, they're really good. So stay tuned for the review on that. And then the other option accessory that I went with was the flip down safety, which I was and still am a big fan of. However, I have gone with, I have also recently bought a strap safety system. This one's from Stray Dog. Again, stay tuned for the review of that. So I haven't been using the flip downs as much, but they are excellent quality, and I am going to hold on to them because I am going to be using them with the utility bench that Rep is working on that I've been waiting for. So it's definitely worth holding on. Just one real quick thing I wanted to point out with the flip down safeties. Every other safety, and this goes for the J cups as well. Every other safety as well as J cup that I have seen on the market uses UHMW, which is a hard, glossy plastic, outstanding for protecting your rack and protecting your barbell. The only issue that I have found with UHMW, specifically for the flip down safeties, is that if you are lifting very heavy, and I lift alone, and I like to lift dangerously here and there, if you are lifting a heavy amount of weight and you fail onto UHMW, I have actually damaged the bar because of the UHMW. And Rep goes in a slightly different direction. They use a urethane blend on this. It's still a very hard plastic. It's still going to give you full protection, but I've failed lifts on this as well, and I have not had the same amount of damage to the bar. And they use that urethane on the J cups as well. It's just something to point out. I don't know if anyone, the number of times you'll have an issue or you'll notice a difference are, you can probably count on one hand. But I did notice that when lifting very heavy, I think the urethane option is probably a little bit more forgiving, as well as durable. The UHMW actually chipped for me when I failed that one lift on the Rogue safety, but I haven't had any issues. This actually, I've failed probably 3 or 4 lifts on this on the Rep one, and it looks, I can't find any. I was trying to look for some imperfections to put in the B-roll. I haven't found any. It still looks perfect. It still looks brand new. So take that for what it's worth. Just a minor thing to point out as an FYI. But attachments and accessories aside, I have a 3x3 11 gauge steel with 1-inch hardware rack with 2-inch hole spacing that can handle 1,000 pounds. Actually, some parts of their website say 1,500 pounds. It doesn't really matter. The bottom line is this rack is going to outlive you, and it is capable of withstanding more weight than you and I and anybody, all of your friends, relatives can ever lift in your lifetime. So as far as attachment compatibility, so I keep saying it's a 3x3 rack, and it is a 3x3 rack, but technically speaking, it's 2.95 by 2.95. I mention that because you may have some issues with compatibility. If you buy an attachment for a 3x3 rack, you may have some looseness. I haven't found that to be the case. Just a little caveat, you might find that to be an issue. However, having said that, I do have the Stray Dog safety strap system, which is designed for a full 3x3 rack, and it fits flawlessly, no issues at all. As far as the attachment options that utilize the space, the hole spacing, if you stick with a 1-pin or a 2-pin attachment, you're going to be fine. If you go with longer pin length, so I'm talking about if you have an attachment that attaches to 1 pin here and another pin 3 or 4 or 5 holes down, you might run into to an issue as far as metric, because it's a metric sized system. Again, I haven't had that because I'm not a huge attachment guy, and all of my attachments so far have been 1 pin or less. So, but I'll just throw that out there. You do some research, ask around, because you may occasionally run into an issue with compatibility for multi-hole pin attachments. For me, one of the huge design advantages of this rack, of this rep rack, over Rogue and some of the other competition in the industry, is that for Rogue, the spacing between uprights is 49 inches, which is okay generally, but the problem is that it leaves not that much room between the collars of the barbell and the upright. And so what happened to me lots of times on my Rogue rack is that you will hit the J-cup or you'll hit the upright as you're going to re-rack, especially for squats. For me, for some reason, it did occasionally happen for bench press, but for squats mostly. And it's pretty nerve-wracking, especially if you're trying to lift some heavy weight there, and you're fumbling around, and the last thing you want to do is to have to worry about whether or not you're going to hit the uprights. It's kind of a pain in the neck. So Rep, on the other hand, as well as Sorinex, interestingly enough, and a couple of other brands out there, but this rack in particular has 47-inch spacing between the uprights, which gives you, as you can see from the barbell sitting back there, it gives that extra bit of room between the upright and the J-cup so that you don't have to worry about hitting the upright or the J-cup. And I can tell you it makes a huge difference. I've had this rack for 9 months, as I said in the beginning, and I have not hit the upright once, not once. Whereas with my Rogue rack, I was hitting the upright, I don't know, I want to say once every couple of weeks, once every few weeks. So it's a huge advantage for me to have the 47-inch spacing versus 49 between the uprights. So what are we left with at the end of the day with this rep rack? We are left with a rack that is of supreme quality, that is not going to break the bank. As I said, I have toyed with the idea of buying Sorinex rack. A Sorinex equivalent rack would have been double the price of this. And I have lifted on Sorinex racks before, and as I said in the beginning, I have lifted and I have owned Rogue racks before. I've lifted on Hammer Strength and Arsenal racks before, and I can tell you from a completely unbiased opinion, this rep rack is every bit as good as any of them. It's every bit as good. The only knock that you can say about this rack is that it's made in China. And I mean, nationalism aside, I know that's a big deal for most people, including myself. But at the end of the day, when you have something that is every bit as good as the American-made counterparts, but the only difference is that you are saving on manufacturing costs that are passed on to you, I will take that in a heartbeat. There is nothing that they could do that would be improved upon this rack if the manufacturing was brought in-house into the U.S. And let's keep something else in mind. Rep is an American company. They're based in Colorado. They have warehouse facilities in Pennsylvania for sure. I think they just opened one in California as well. They hire a decent amount of Americans, so you are supporting an American company by going with them. It just so happens that the rack itself is made by robots in China, so it is what it is. But I'd rather take the cost savings and support the American company that way. So to answer the question, we're left with a stunningly high quality rack with some amazingly innovative attachment options. And I'm not just talking about adding an extra couple of posts to make it a 6-post rack. I'm talking about taking advantage of that rear base stabilizer and throwing a fully functional selectorized lat pull down system on there if I wanted to. I'm talking about adding, they have another selectorized system called the Aries that has the pulleys that and the trolley system that I was mentioning earlier regarding the paint. And they have that's a rear mounted system. Then they have a side mounted system called the Athena, I believe. I don't know, man. Check out the website. If I ever end up buying any of those, I'll certainly review them. But they're going in directions that I have never seen in terms of innovation that I've never seen before from a fitness company. I am very, very impressed. As far as negatives, I opened this up by saying and this is the name of the rack. It's the PR5000 V2, which presumably there was a version 1 floating around that came out at some point. Again, I haven't followed Rep much to this point, so I don't know anything about that version 1. I can tell you, though, with a pretty good degree of confidence, that there's probably not going to be a version 3, because there is nothing that this rack can improve upon. It's a bold statement, but it's completely true. There's nothing they can improve, literally nothing. From a minor aesthetic standpoint, I would like to have seen bolt color options other than the stainless steel. It comes with 1-inch stainless steel hardware. It would have been nice to have the option of like a blackened version, like a bright zinc blackened version. And as I mentioned before, it would have been nice to be able to have different colors for the nameplate, the logo plate. So, for example, if I did buy a red rack, to be able to have a red nameplate, that'd be pretty cool. But that's it. That's the only things that I would change on this rack. There is nothing else that they could possibly change. So, hopefully, if you've stuck around for this long, you've come to the same conclusion that I have, that this is it. This is the pinnacle of power rack design. It can't get any better, and I don't really care that it was made in China. If it was made in the U.S., it wouldn't be any better. It would cost more, but it wouldn't be any better. I would, if you were to say to me, hey, money is no object, go out and buy the rack of your dreams. You come back to me after I've completed that task, and you would be looking at this rack right here. It's the exact same thing. This is the rack that I think would be perfect for just about everybody. And yeah, so that pretty much concludes the review. Hope it was helpful. As I mentioned a couple of times, stay tuned for future reviews of some of the accessories that you see here and other items I have around the gym. And I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody.